I love that God has just made me for this. Like God has made us moms so perfectly to mother the kids that he's given us.
Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential, pursuing a career with passion, and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. This week, I'm talking to all the mothers out there. Do you struggle with mom guilt, or do you need a little encouragement along your motherhood journey? If so, I have the perfect resource for you. Her name is Kirsten Vossler, and she has a podcast called Rejoicing in Motherhood. Kirsten is the mother of 9. Her kids range from 13 years down to 8 months. And so she has a lot of combined experience and really has felt a passion and a calling to encourage those other mothers out there along their motherhood journey. So I can't wait for you to hear from Kirsten. Well, this is a treat to be talking to you this morning because I think you're so amazing and I want to share you with other people. And so this will be a fun conversation.
Oh, I'm so glad to talk to you. This is going to be so fun.
Yes, well, good. So I want to ask you about things that I didn't really know myself. And so even though we know each other, but I thought I just kind of want to have you start at the beginning and maybe talk a little bit about your childhood, and then we'll get into a little bit more.
Great. Well, I was raised in a wonderful Christian home. My parents were missionaries before I was born. We're on staff at a discipleship Bible school for my early childhood. And then we're pastoring a church after that. So I grew up in ministry, in a ministry family. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, and we lived
only
in
3.
Yes, only 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So 3 siblings.
Did your husband also come from, several kids, or?
He's from a family of 4.
Okay.
He's the
and
third
only
of 4.
4. Okay.
Only 4.
People will hear why we're saying that. Okay.
Yes.
So you are the host of Rejoicing in Motherhood.
I am.
And you are such a glowing example because I do feel like that's what you portray to me. And then when I listen to your podcast and, read on your blog, you are so happy to be a mom. And I want to find out from you what you enjoy so much about motherhood.
Oh, man. Well,
did that open a whole thing?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
As with anything, there are, of course, highs and lows, and things that are challenging and things that are so fun and amazing.
Yes.
The Lord put it in my heart from so early that I wanted to have a lot of children. And so, and in my family, even though my parents only had 3 children, there was a love for kids. They loved kids. They had children actually really late in life, just because of all the things that they were busy with and doing. They couldn't have kids. So they weren't even trying not to. They just couldn't have children for 13 years into their marriage. And then they just prayed and prayed and prayed and were asking the Lord for a baby. And that's when I was born. And then it just was kind of that same thing. They shared that with us even as kids, that every time mom got pregnant, they had to really pray and seek the Lord and ask for a child. And so there was a love of children and an understanding that God loves children put into me from an early age. And it was interesting because it was very similar in my husband's story, where it's a little different, but his parents waited a while to have kids. And then later, after they had two kids, and then my husband was the third. And before he was born, they just realized, oh, wow, it would be so wonderful if God would bless us with more children. And so his mom was so vocal and so encouraging to him through his whole life of saying, children are a blessing. God loves kids. Just be open to what God has for you. And so we both came into our relationship with that mentality and into our marriage and then starting our family. And it really is a dream come true for me. Like, it might sound a little bit cliche, and we have 9 children now. And I love it. I love being a mom. I love, of course, the baby cuddles and the baby smell, of their soft little heads. And I love the toddlers with their chubby little arms giving me hugs and learning how to talk, and the connection that I'm having with my older kids. My oldest is a teenager now. And so the connection that we can have in the friendship, I love it. And I think most of all, I love that God has just made me for this. Like, God has made us moms so perfectly to mother the kids that he's given us. So does that answer that question?
Yes. And I love it. But I appreciate your honesty when you said even the struggles, because of course, we're talking about motherhood, and I love being a mom, and I'm at such a different stage than you. I have one in college, and then my son is graduating in 2 weeks from high school. Yes. And so I'm about to be an empty nester, and you knew that. But anyway, you do have different stages, and
yes.
There are different struggles. And so I'm so fascinated with you because you are so positive and you are such a light. But can you also kind of share some of the struggles and then what helps you, overcome that, or, get refocused or whatever? Because it's hard to juggle, for me, even 2 kids sometimes, and you have 9. So if you could kind of share a little bit about that.
Well, I think the great thing is that we have the Lord. I could not do this without the Lord.
Are you praying all the time, every day?
Oh, yeah, pretty constantly.
I am too.
It's just a connection. I mean, and I love that God is so real and so interested in our every single moment. And this is something I talk about on my podcast a lot, but he's involved in every moment of our lives. Like, he cares about the sparrows. We read that in the Bible. He cares about the sparrows, but he cares about us every single minute, everything that we're doing. And because he's a real and a personal God, we can have this one-on-one connection all the time. And so every time something comes up and I'm like, I don't know what to do, or if that's the right thing for me to do right now, it's just okay, God, what do I do? Like, how do I do this? And sometimes it's not even that specifically spoken by me. Sometimes it's just kind of like this in my heart thing of like, and then he gives me an answer, or he shows me clearly, okay, that's the one who needs to be taken care of right now, or whatever it may be. And I'm also just so thankful for God's grace. And his grace is not just mercy that gets us saved. His grace is this divine empowerment that is available to all of us who are Christians all the time. And so, and in the Bible, in Ephesians, it talks about how that grace is the divine power that raised Jesus from the dead. And so I have access to that all the time. And I am pulling on it constantly. And that's something God has shown me over the years of just like being in a mindset and a remembrance, like, okay, this is available to me. All I have to do, I don't even have to beg and cry, God, help me, give me grace. I can just say, Lord, I'm receiving your grace right now, because it's always available and it's just being poured out to me. And I'm the one who just has to open my hands and just receive it. So that's how I keep up with everything.
See, I get to the point where I'm tired and I'm overwhelmed.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not never tired or never overwhelmed. In fact, I was thinking you had a question about like prioritizing and things. And I was like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, I kind of, I'm not a natural planner, natural prioritizer. Like some people are like, well, I have my 3 things every day. And I'm like, I'm trying to learn from those people. But a lot of the times the priorities show up for me when I am feeling overwhelmed. And so I'll be like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. Okay, what do I actually need to be doing right now? Or what thing is the most important thing for today that we focus on, that we, spend our energy on? And so a lot of times my prioritizing comes out of kind of that feeling overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm able to kind of use that instead of just going off and being like, I'm so overwhelmed, and just like going to my room,
Yeah.
which sometimes happens, of course. But, like I can hopefully kind of channel that energy of overwhelm into a state of peace. So where I'm taking those things that are so big and feel so compounding on me, and I can kind of sort through them with the Lord, even with my husband, and to figure out like, okay, what do we need to be doing? How do we do this in a way that is peaceful for me, that is peaceful for our family, and that will give us what we are really needing?
Yeah. So I hope people caught that you just quickly said we have 9 kids, because let's pause on that. Okay. So you all do have 9 kids, and their ages 13 down to 8 months.
Yes.
So you are at all of these different stages. I mean, you're in the teenage, you're in every stage, Kirsten, aren't you?
I have teens. Yeah, I have teens, I have tweens, I have elementary, I have
baby
preschoolers, and a baby. Yeah. And toddlers. Yes.
Yes.
We're doing it all.
So,
in fact, I was laughing because I've said this, I've figured out one time that with all the kids that we have and all the ages, that I've been mothering for around like 64 kid years.
Oh my gosh.
If I add all their ages together. And so I have a lot of experience, even though I've only been a mom for 14 years.
Okay. Well, that brings me to the podcast then that you have, because you are gathering from all this experience and really kind of sharing your mothering tips, and then, a lot of different things. So your podcast is called Rejoicing in Motherhood. Mm-hmm. So I wanted you to kind of speak to how you had the time to start a podcast, maybe how you were called to start it. And then I want to have you tell people, a little more about it.
Well, I love to talk, as you can probably hear, but mostly I love encouraging moms. I just think that it's so important for us, especially in this day and age where we are basically taught, or it's insinuated to us, that being a mom is kind of a just thing. Like, well, you're just a mom, and that it's kind of a sub-calling, let's say. And I don't see that in the Bible at all. I don't see that. And that's what I base my life on. I'm like, I don't see that. I see the Lord saying children are a blessing and mothers are valuable. And I see that in my world. I mean, look around. Where would we be without mothers? Nowhere. Nowhere at all.
I agree.
Any of us. And so mothers are so, so valuable. And the thing that I've noticed is that we all moms love their kids, but we don't all love motherhood. And I think that it's an important distinction to make, because there can be so much joy when we recognize how valuable motherhood is, and how wonderful and what a gift and what a calling it is, and how very important motherhood is. So I love encouraging moms. I've had mom friends for years. Even when I was a teenager, this is so interesting. I actually spent a lot of time with a family that was from my church who had 8 children. And I would just go as an older teen, I would go out to their house. I would help them. She homeschooled. I would just kind of give her my time one day a week. And it was such a learning experience for me. And I just realized in their family, like, wow, like they don't have it all together, but what a beautiful thing this is to have all of these children. And of course, I'm a kid person anyway. I loved hanging out with them. But I just saw like, wow, this is really valuable. This is really important. And I'm still friends with them to this day, and now their daughters are grown and have children of their own. And so it's really, really fun to see that. And so I love encouraging moms, and I love to write as well. And I thought, oh, I'm going to write a book. And I am planning on writing a book someday. So stay tuned on that.
Okay.
But I realized that I have limited time as a mom. I was a mom of 7 when I thought about starting a podcast. I was a mom of 8 when it finally got off the ground. And now I'm a mom of 9, and I've been podcasting for about 2 years. So I realized, well, this is a medium that I love. I love listening to podcasts, and it's a great thing for moms because we can just pop in some earbuds while we're doing dishes or making dinner or, whatever it is we're doing. We don't have to be still and reading a book or reading a blog post. And so I thought, what if I just start a podcast now? And I was in a group that was really encouraging me, like, yes, go for it. And so I decided to kind of put the book idea on hold for a little while and just pour out my encouragement into people's ears through a podcast. And it's been great because I can record after my kids are in bed at night. That's usually when I do it. Occasionally, if I have like a summer, in the summertime, if they're all outside or something, I can have some quiet time to be able to do that. But most of the time it's in the evenings after they're all in bed. And that's how I do it. I'm just pulling from questions that people ask me. I'm pulling from things that I've learned that I feel like are very valuable that would help other people. And that's what I do.
Okay. I love it. So you're juggling all these different ages, stages, and personalities. So I know you speak a lot to that in your podcast. Even me as an almost empty nester, I found your blog and what you're saying beneficial because it's applicable even to parts of life.
Yeah.
You also are a homeschool mom.
Yes.
So if you want to maybe talk about that, because I was telling some friends about you last night and they were all like, after the 9 kids and the podcast, then I layered on the homeschool and they were all like, no. So anyway, and I said, yes. So if you want to just talk about why you decided to homeschool and then how you kind of logistically manage that and why it's been good for your family.
Oh, homeschooling is such a blessing for us. It really is in every way. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that we have that ability to do. Basically, the reason that we're homeschooling, our children are given to us by the Lord. And we have such a desire to raise them and train them and disciple them in the ways of God. And our children are going to be discipled either by the world or by the school system or by us, whatever it is. And we just feel like that's the best way for us to be able to raise our kids and disciple our kids is to have them at home and be homeschooling them and just be very hands-on in their education. And the way that works out logistically is even though we have 9 children, this year we had 5 of them school age. And then they're kind of split up into several little groups. It's more like a one-room schoolhouse kind of situation rather than a bunch of, 5 individual grades, if that makes sense. So there are things that we can do all together. Things like history and science, you're learning lots of different things at lots of different times with those subjects. We do the Bible together. We do kind of, social studies, that kind of stuff all can be done together or in smaller little groups. And then things like math and language arts and their, writing curriculum, things like that. They are learning those things individually according to whatever level they're at. So it flows pretty well. And then of course we have all these little ones too that are around. And so we take turns kind of sharing the load, but sharing that responsibility of helping the little ones stay occupied while the other ones are doing some schoolwork. And so it just flows, but I love it because it's very flexible. We can quickly get stuff done earlier in the day and we can go do something in the afternoon, or we can do a few days of things at once and take a little bit longer break. But yeah, it's really flexible and fluid. We moved to a different state 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, and we were able to just continue as we were going, and our school schedule was able to flex and flow, and the kids didn't have to change schools. Like, we moved to several different cities in the process of getting to where we are now. And so that would have been wild.
Mm-hmm.
We would have just had to homeschool no matter what that year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just really, really a blessing to us. And it's so cool to see how the older kids can start helping the little ones with some of their things. And so I think it's easy for people who see, oh my goodness, you have 9 kids, and they're thinking like, you have to wipe 9 bottoms, and you have to like cut 9 people's fingernails, and you have to like
Make food. Yes.
feed every single kid. And I'm like, no, like one of them is 13, and one of them is 10, and
Yes.
they can start to do a lot of things. They learn really well how to do things on their own, and then they learn how to be a contributor in our family and to help out with some of the younger kids too. So
Yeah.
it's really a blessing. I always tell people it's really, really fun having a teenager and having a baby right now. And I say I highly recommend having a baby when you have teenagers, because it's such a different experience. So my experience as a mom with 1 or 2 babies or 3 babies is so different now, even though I have the same number of like little ones at the same ages, where my first 3 were 3 under 3. And my last 3 so far right now, we're also 3 under 3. And it's such a different experience having 3 under 3 and a teenager than it was just having 3 under 3. So I'm like, if you're in that those early stages and you feel like I'm going to drown, there is no possible way we could have more children, just wait a few years. You will see the blessing and the benefit of having these kids, even having them close together at the beginning it's amazing. Like now I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, right now, as we're recording this, I said, okay, why don't you guys all take everybody outside and have breakfast outside? And so they just trooped outside, and my oldest daughter made, little bowls of yogurt and fruit and some biscuits, and they went outside to go eat and take care of it, and play and be together for, an hour.
Yeah. Being that kind of a part of the family, they probably are proud of their responsibilities and their contributions that they can make to the family too.
Yeah. I mean, I think teaching our children at however many children we have and whatever ages they're at, that they are a valuable contributor to our family, to society, to the body of Christ, all of those, that is so important, because it gives them that sense of belonging. It gives them that sense of identity. And I think that in our world today, sadly, a lot of that is missing for a lot of people, because they're not required to do things, or they're not brought into, a family with this attitude of like, you're going to contribute. Like, we're all in this together. We're doing this as a family. And yeah.
Okay.
And obviously, I mean, we're still the parents, you know what I mean?
Right,
it's not
right.
like we're being like, here, you just take care of that kid all the time. Like I'm not just sitting in my room with my feet up eating bonbons all day while my older kids take care of the little ones. Like,
no, I don't.
Not how it works.
Yeah. Yes. I don't see that. Okay. So I do want to ask you though about mom guilt. So I don't know if that's something that you have and you can speak to. At different stages, for whatever reason, I have felt that. And so I thought I'd love for you to kind of share, because you only have so much time. You're one person, you have 9 kids. So anyway, if you could kind of speak to mom guilt and that.
Yes. Well, I know that is something that is very prevalent with moms. And I think several things about it. First off, ultimately, it's unnecessary. Like I think a lot of times it's something that we see somebody else doing something, and then we go, oh, that I should be doing that. Oh, I should. Oh, this should be better. Oh, should. And we're just should all the time. And that's not good. That is not helpful for us. And it's not helpful for anybody. And so I definitely have had those times where I look around and I go, oh no, I'm totally messing this up. Like this should be happening. I mean, in every area. It could be homeschooling. It could be, things that I'm doing with my children, or the way I'm spending time with them, or, we're just bombarded, especially with social media. And we see all these wonderful, sweet, moments that people post and we're like, oh, that's their whole life. Every single minute is just like that glowing, sparkling picture. And then we put that on ourselves and go like, I'm terrible because that's not my every single minute. So I think that in the first place, we just kind of need to go, you know what, that's not reality. and then I think though, the way that we can do that is we just need to know what our season is. We need to know what our space is and what is God calling me to right now. And I think that's honestly the most important thing we can do. And the way that we can really get rid of it is to be confident and understand, like, this is my season. Like, I'm not in the season of, making beautiful cupcakes every morning with, my two little girls dressed in pinafores. Like I'm sorry, that's not where I'm at right now. And I think that if we can take away those shoulds and stop, as far as the superficial things go, that's what I'm talking about. Of course, there are things we should be doing with our kids, but those superficial things, I feel like that's where most of that bombards us and comes at us, and we're like, oh no, I'm messing up. And then there is just a reality that we are, moms, we're one person, and we have one or another, another person or another 5 people or another, however many people that are dependent on us and that we are responsible for, and we are shaping their lives. And that is a big deal. That is a big deal. And so I think that's where the grace comes in, is that we've got to be able to pull on that grace that God gives us and say, God, I need help. I don't know how to do this right for every kid. And every kid is so different that we have to be depending on somebody that's bigger than us to be able to see the big picture all the time and help us know what to do in the nitty-gritty, because he can see the big picture. And then the other little piece of it that God showed me so clearly is that he not only has grace for us, but he also has grace for our kids. Because we are going to make mistakes. We are going to mess up. We are going to not do things perfectly. And I mean, there's more I could say about that. Like, perfect doesn't actually exist. Think about it. So we can let ourselves go off of that hook. There's no perfect. Just we're all doing the best we can, and we're hearing from the Lord and doing what he's asking us to do. But he gives our kids grace, and it is an important part of their life and their upbringing for them to be able to receive that grace from God too. And it's important for us to recognize, oh, when I fail, which I will do, not everything rests on me as their mom. Also, they are going to be learning from God. They are going to be learning from experiences, and it's probably going to be okay. So,
okay. Yeah. Yes. I appreciate you speaking to that, because I do think people get hung up on that, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. I think it's really important for us to, when we're feeling bombarded with that mom guilt or all that shoulds, I think it's really, really important for us to pull back a little bit. And I find, like, for myself, like, sometimes just taking a break from Instagram or whatever it is that I'm looking at and feeling like, oh, if it starts to feel like a burden, like, put it down for a few days. Just, put your phone on the counter and just pretend like it's a phone from the olden days when we couldn't carry them all over the place. And so I'm like, just put your phone down for a day and just get in the moment. I think when we get in the moment with our own families, that is such a blessing. And it helps me a lot with eliminating that mom guilt.
Okay. Thank you for speaking to that. Yeah. Okay. So in wrapping up, this time has flown.
I know.
So in wrapping up, I have a theme this year that is live purposefully in 2023. And I wanted to get your take on your purpose and how you're living purposefully.
That is such a good theme. What a good question. So I feel like a broken record on this one, but I feel the purpose of my motherhood and what I'm doing. And I'm not only a mom, I do a lot of other things too, but that is my main focus right now. And I get that from the Lord. I get that from God. When I'm connected to him and hearing his heart over me, that is where I find the purpose in what I'm doing. And when I recognize the truth of what he's saying about me and about my job, quote unquote, as a mom, then I realize like I'm doing it in a purposeful way. So when I can hear from the Lord how important what I'm doing is and how important I am as a person, then I can pull on that and then I can live out in a purposeful way.
Okay. That's awesome. I'm going to wrap up with that. So this has just been so inspirational, and I love visiting with you anyway, but it was fun to just get to know you on a different level because you and I are podcasting buddies.
Yes, we are.
So, yes. And so I hope people check out your podcast and share your podcast, Rejoicing in Motherhood. It's incredible, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.